I still remember that morning like it's burned into the back of my mind, the way the cold November air wrapped around my porch as if it was trying to warn me that something was coming, something painful, something I wasn't prepared for, and even though I kept telling myself to breathe, to stay calm, to remind my heart that Thanksgiving was supposed to be a day of gratitude, of warmth, of family gathering around the table, laughing, talking, arguing about football games or who burned the pie this year, I could feel that strange heaviness in the room long before Emily, my daughter-in-law, even opened her mouth, because she stood there with that stiff smile, the kind that doesn't touch the eyes, the kind people wear when they've already decided something behind your back. And as she looked at me, her coat half-buttoned, her keys dangling from her fingers, she sighed like I was the one making her uncomfortable, like my existence was somehow the inconvenience in her perfectly controlled life, and then she said it, in that soft but sharp tone she always used when she wanted to sound polite but cut you at the same time. "You're not coming with us this year." And I don't know why those words didn't hit me right away. Maybe because part of me didn't believe she could say something that cruel on Thanksgiving morning. Maybe because I kept waiting for my son, Michael, to step forward, to correct her, to at least hesitate and say, "No, Mom's coming too," but he didn't. He stood there frozen, eyes lowered, shoulders tense, hands shoved in his pockets the way he did when he was a boy caught lying about finishing his homework, and I knew, in that exact second, that they had talked about this, decided this, planned this moment without me, because the silence between them was too practiced, too smooth, too rehearsed, and even then, even when the truth was sitting right in front of me, I still tried to swallow the sting. Tried to pretend it didn't matter, tried to smile the way mothers do when they're being pushed out but want to keep the peace, and I whispered, "All right," even though my chest felt tight and my fingertips were shaking and every memory of every Thanksgiving I ever hosted flashed through my head, the years I cooked until my back hurt, the years I stayed up all night basting turkey, decorating the table, making sure everyone felt welcome, even Emily, especially Emily, because she was new to the family, and I wanted her to feel loved, to feel like she belonged, but standing there, watching her nod like my quiet acceptance was expected, like my feelings were irrelevant, like this was just an easy box to check off her list, something inside me cracked, just a small crack. The kind that doesn't explode but spreads slowly under the surface, and even though I didn't say a word, I could feel myself shrinking, folding inward, trying not to show how deep the hurt really went, and when they turned around, when the door closed behind them, when their car engine faded down the street, the silence in my house felt so loud it echoed, bouncing off the walls, off the furniture, off the memories of Thanksgivings past, and I kept standing there, hand on the doorknob, trying to breathe, trying to tell myself it was fine, that families change, that children grow up, that sometimes holidays don't go the way you expect, but then something strange happened, something that froze me right where I stood, because barely 10 minutes after they left, my phone buzzed, a small vibration on the kitchen counter, innocent at first, but when I saw the screen, when I saw the name, when I saw the message, I felt the air leave my lungs because the text came from my neighbor, sweet old Mrs. Grant, who lived across the street and loved to watch everything, who saw everyone coming and going, and her message said, "Honey, were those your son and daughter-in-law?" Because I could have sworn I saw another car already parked outside their house earlier. Someone I don't recognize, and that line hit me like a cold slap, because if they were leaving for Thanksgiving dinner, why was there already someone there, someone waiting, someone they didn't want me to see? And even though I tried to push it aside, pretend it wasn't my business, pretend they had the right to invite whoever they wanted, I couldn't shake it, the questions, the unease, the way my heart thudded with slow, heavy beats, because deep down I knew something was wrong, something bigger than just being excluded, something that made Emily's stiff smile make sense, something that explained Michael's guilty silence. And as the minutes passed and the quiet inside my house pressed against me, I grabbed my coat without thinking, my hands moving before my mind did, and I stepped outside, the cold wind rushing into my lungs like a warning, and I started walking, slowly at first, then faster, down the sidewalk, toward their house, not because I wanted to confront them, not because I wanted to cause a scene, but because I had to know, I had to understand, I had to see who they thought was more deserving of a seat at their Thanksgiving table than me. The woman who raised Michael, the woman who held him when he was sick, drove him to school, worked double shifts to pay for his college, stood by him through every heartbreak, supported his marriage even when Emily made it difficult. And maybe it was wrong of me, maybe it was intrusive, maybe I should have stayed home like Emily wanted, but something deeper than pride, deeper than anger, deeper than heartbreak pulled me forward, and when I reached their street, when I saw their driveway, when I noticed the unfamiliar dark sedan parked neatly beside Michael's truck, my stomach tightened, because I recognized that car, not personally, not intimately, but enough to know it wasn't a stranger, enough to know it belonged to someone connected to Emily, someone she once mentioned in passing, someone she said she hadn't seen in years, someone whose name made Michael uncomfortable. And as I stepped closer, as I hid behind the edge of their fence, as the sound of voices drifted through the cold air, I heard laughter, happy, relaxed, familiar laughter, and then I heard her voice, Emily's mother, the woman who always looked at me like I was inferior, like I was somehow less sophisticated, less modern, less valuable, and my heart dropped because of course they invited her, of course they replaced me with her. But that wasn't the part that shattered me. No, what shattered me was the moment the front door opened wider and the unfamiliar voice stepped outside, deep, confident, too comfortable, and when the porch light hit his face, when I finally recognized him, when the realization crashed through me like thunder, I understood why they didn't want me there, understood why they needed me gone. Because the man they invited, the one standing on my son's porch smiling like he belonged there, wasn't just anyone, he was someone who could rip my family apart, someone who had a history with Emily, someone Michael didn't know the full truth about, someone who should never have been invited on Thanksgiving. And in that moment, watching him laugh with my family while I stood hidden in the cold, I felt everything inside me twist, break, and burn, and I knew, this wasn't just exclusion, this wasn't just disrespect, this wasn't just a holiday gone wrong, this was betrayal, deep, deliberate, calculated betrayal, and whatever secret they were hiding, it was big enough that they needed me gone to keep it buried. I remember waking up the next morning with that same tight feeling in my chest, the kind that tells you the storm you thought ended last night is still waiting for you the moment you open your eyes, and as the sun slipped through the blinds in thin, trembling lines. I felt this strange mix of fear and hope twisting inside me, because part of me believed things would finally calm down, but another part whispered, quietly but sharply, that life wasn't done testing me yet. So I sat up slowly, rubbing my face, trying to chase away the exhaustion that had settled into my bones. And when I walked to the kitchen, the house felt too quiet, like the air was holding its breath, and I could hear each tick of the clock like footsteps of a truth I wasn't ready to face. Yet the moment I saw her backpack on the table, half open, with her sketchbook peeking out, that familiar ache rose again, because it reminded me of all those nights she used to sit by the window drawing the world she wished she lived in. A safe one, a gentle one, a world where she didn't have to pretend she was okay. And I could feel tears forming, unwanted but honest, as I touched the worn edges of the book and whispered her name under my breath, not because she was lost, but because sometimes even the ones who come home feel far away for a while. And as the coffee brewed slowly, filling the room with that warm, grounding smell, I heard footsteps in the hallway, soft, hesitant, like someone afraid to break the fragile peace hanging in the air. And when she appeared, hair messy, eyes tired, wrapped in the oversized sweater she always stole from me, she didn't say anything at first, just looked at the floor, then at me, then back at the floor, until finally she let out a breath she had been holding for years, and whispered, "Mom, I'm sorry," but I shook my head quickly, stepping forward, wrapping my arms around her before she could drown in guilt that didn't belong to her, whispering, "You don't ever have to say sorry to me, baby, not for surviving." And she clung to me, shaking, trying to hold herself together, but her body trembled with everything she had been carrying, everything she had never said, everything she had hidden because she didn't want to worry me. And right there, in the quiet of that small kitchen, with the sun climbing higher and the coffee machine hissing softly behind us, she finally broke down, and I held her the way a mother holds a child when the world has been too loud, too cruel, too heavy, whispering over and over that she was safe now, that she was home, that she was not alone. And as the minutes passed, her breathing steadied, not fully calm, but no longer drowning, and she pulled back, wiping her cheeks with the sleeve of that sweater, trying to smile but failing, yet the effort itself was enough to break my heart in the best way, because it told me she was trying, really trying. And when she sat at the table, tracing circles on the wooden surface, she finally said the words she had never said before, words that hurt to hear but needed to be spoken. "Mom, I thought leaving would make things easier, but it didn't, it made everything worse." And she looked up, her voice cracking, "I didn't know how to come back without disappointing you." And I reached for her hand quickly, squeezing it tight, telling her that she could never disappoint me, not by struggling, not by hurting, not by falling apart, because the only thing that would have disappointed me was losing her forever. And as she nodded slowly, eyes glassy again, I told her there was nothing we couldn't rebuild, nothing we couldn't face together. And as we talked, really talked, for the first time in what felt like years, something inside me softened, like the part of me that had been holding on to fear finally let go. And I realized that healing doesn't come in a sudden moment, but in these small, almost invisible breaths, these honest conversations, these fragile reconnections. And as the morning turned to afternoon, I made us breakfast, nothing special, just eggs and toast, but she smiled when I set the plate in front of her. A real smile this time, small, shaky, but real, and I felt this warmth in my chest because for the first time in so long, the house felt like a home again, and as we ate, she told me things that made me ache, things about nights she cried alone, moments she felt trapped, dreams she gave up on because someone convinced her she wasn't good enough, and while every story cut deep, I listened without interrupting, without trying to fix everything instantly, because sometimes what someone needs isn't a solution, it's someone who stays, someone who listens, someone who doesn't turn away from the ugly truth. And when she finished, looking embarrassed, like she expected me to judge her, I just reached across the table again and told her that she was brave, stronger than she knew, and that I was proud of her for surviving what she did, and something in her expression changed, like she finally believed she wasn't broken beyond repair, and she leaned back, letting out a small laugh, tired but genuine, saying she felt lighter than she had in months, maybe years, and the afternoon sun shifted, casting warm light across her face, and in that moment, she didn't look defeated, she looked like someone slowly finding her way back to herself, and I decided right then that whatever came next, whatever challenges waited for us, we'd face them side by side, no secrets, no silence, no distance, just honesty, love, and time, the only things that truly heal. And when evening came, we took a walk outside, something simple, just down the street and back, but she slipped her hand into mine, the way she used to as a little girl, and I felt this sudden rush of memory, all the years I spent watching her grow, all the moments I thought I had lost forever, returning to me piece by piece, and as we walked under the orange sky, cars passing slowly, leaves crunching beneath our feet, she told me she wanted to start over, go back to school, get a job, rebuild her life, and I told her she could do all of that and more, that nothing in her past had the power to define her future unless she let it, and she nodded, eyes bright with something new, not hope exactly, but the beginning of it, fragile but alive, and when we returned home, she went to her room and opened her sketchbook, and I watched from the doorway as she picked up a pencil with hands that trembled at first but grew steadier with each stroke, drawing something soft, something beautiful, something alive, and when she turned the page toward me, showing a sketch of a woman holding her daughter, sunlight behind them, both of them standing, not broken, but rising, I felt my throat tighten, because she captured us, not as we were, but as we were becoming, and I whispered, voice cracking, "It's beautiful," and she smiled again, saying, "It's us, starting over," and that night, as she went to sleep in her room, safe, warm, home, I sat in the living room for a long time, thinking about how close I came to losing her, how easily life can fracture, how quietly people can suffer, and I promised myself that no matter what came next, I would protect this peace, this chance, this second beginning, and as the house settled into nighttime stillness, I finally breathed, deeply, fully, without fear for the first time in a long time, because my daughter was home, healing, and tomorrow, we would continue building the life she deserved, one gentle, honest day at a time. I grabbed my coat without thinking, the fabric rough under my fingertips, and stepped outside into the rain, the drops immediately soaking my hair and clothes, the cold hitting my skin in sharp bursts that made me feel alive, painfully alive, and I walked, not knowing exactly where I was going, only that I needed to see her, to see if the warmth in her voice was real, or just a cruel trick my mind was playing, and the streets were empty except for the occasional car splashing through puddles, their headlights painting silver streaks across the wet asphalt, and every step felt like stepping through time itself, as if I were walking through the years we had lost, each puddle a mirror reflecting memories I could barely face. And when I reached her apartment building, the worn bricks glistening under the rain, I hesitated at the door, my heart hammering like a drum in my chest, my hands trembling so violently I thought I might drop the key. And when I finally turned the lock and pushed the door open, the warm smell of her home hit me like a punch to the gut, the faint scent of lavender, her perfume, her presence lingering in the air, and I froze in the hallway, afraid to move, afraid that stepping further would shatter the fragile illusion I'd been holding onto. But then I heard her, moving in the kitchen, the sound of her bare feet against the wooden floor, soft but deliberate, and the faint clink of a mug against the counter, and my stomach twisted, a mix of relief and fear, and she turned, her eyes widening, her hand frozen mid-motion, and I saw everything in that instant. The years of struggle, the sleepless nights, the quiet pain, but also the unbroken strength, the stubbornness, the love that had survived even when I thought it couldn't. And she didn't say anything at first, just stared, her breath caught in her chest, and I wanted to reach for her, to pull her close, but words caught in my throat, and I realized that no matter how long we had waited, some things couldn't be fixed in a single moment, some wounds needed time, needed patience, needed acknowledgement, and so I just stood there, letting the silence stretch between us like a fragile bridge, until she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. You came, and it wasn't a question, it was an affirmation, a relief, a confession all at once, and I nodded, unable to speak, and tears ran down my face, mixing with the rain that had tracked down my coat, and she stepped closer, slowly, cautiously, and when our hands finally met, the warmth of her skin against mine, the softness of her touch, it felt like coming home after a lifetime lost at sea, and we stood like that for what felt like hours, neither of us daring to move, neither of us daring to break the fragile spell, until finally she let out a shaky laugh, and it was like sunlight breaking through storm clouds, and she said, I didn't think I'd see you again, and I swallowed hard, my voice cracking as I said, I never stopped coming back, and in that moment, everything, regret, fear, hope, love, longing, collapsed into a single heartbeat, and I knew that from here on out, nothing else mattered except the fragile, dangerous, beautiful possibility of us finally finding our way back to each other, through the storm, through the pain, through the years we had lost. And even though I knew the road ahead would be long, difficult, and littered with memories too heavy to ignore, I also knew that we were ready, finally ready, to face it together, hand in hand, heart in heart. And as we stood there in the kitchen, rain dripping from my coat, her eyes locked on mine, I felt a fierce, raw, unshakable certainty that we had survived the darkness, and that maybe, just maybe, the light waiting on the other